Jake had no idea the homeless man he was humiliating was America's highest decorated war hero. Hey, Hidden Strength family! Before we dive into this powerful story of honor hidden in plain sight, tell us which country you're watching from in the comments. And if you believe our veterans deserve better than being invisible on our streets, please subscribe to help us share these important stories. You know, we pass by people every single day and make split-second judgments about their worth, their history, their contribution to society. But what happened on a Seattle street corner will shake you to your core and change how you see every person you encounter. Because sometimes the man you're looking down on has already sacrificed everything for your freedom. "Get out of here, you dirty homeless freak!" shouted 19-year-old Jake Morrison, pouring his cold coffee on Frank Weber as he sat on Seattle's busy street. The 67-year-old man tried to shield himself with his old coat from the cold. "This neighborhood isn't for bums like you." Jake's friends Tyler and Mason burst into laughter while recording the incident with their phones. "These people are really parasites who contribute nothing to society," Tyler said, looking at Frank. "He probably dodged the military, just a lazy type." Frank Weber quietly stood up. Coffee had mixed with his old coat, but there was no anger on his face, just deep exhaustion. His gray hair was messy, his beard long, but in his blue eyes still sparkled the determination that once belonged to soldiers he had commanded. The young men didn't know that standing before them was a war hero who possessed America's highest military honor, the Medal of Honor. In Frank's small, damp basement apartment in Queen Anne neighborhood, nothing visible gave any clue about his former life. Old newspaper piles, a few canned goods, a worn-out bed, a typical homeless person's modest living space. But at the very bottom of his old bag, wrapped carefully in a piece of cloth, lay America's most prestigious military honor, the Medal of Honor. Beside it, faded photographs, the unit he commanded in Vietnam, the soldiers he saved, and young Frank being awarded by the president at the White House. Sergeant Major Frank Weber wasn't just a homeless man. In 1971 in Vietnam, he had earned the Medal of Honor by rescuing 12 wounded soldiers under enemy fire, served 30 years on active duty, trained thousands of young soldiers. He was a legendary veteran. So why was he now living on Seattle streets? Frank's tragic story began after he retired from the military. After retiring in 2001, his PTSD symptoms worsened. The horrors he witnessed in Vietnam, the friends he lost, the difficult decisions he made began echoing in his mind. His wife Linda noticed Frank's change, but didn't know how to help. Frank refused help, not wanting to show weakness. He turned to alcohol and began experiencing war scenes in his dreams. In the 2008 financial crisis, Frank lost all his savings. His financial advisor turned out to be a fraudster. His military pension began to be delayed. When Linda got cancer and treatment costs doubled, they lost their home because it was mortgaged. When Linda died in 2015, Frank completely collapsed. Losing his wife of 44 years defeated him for the last time. He got lost in Veterans Affairs bureaucracy and couldn't get help. For the past 3 years, he had been living on Seattle's streets. The Medal of Honor was the only valuable possession he had, but he never considered selling it. Every day, Frank would sit on the same corner, asking for help from passers-by. Most ignored him, some looked down on him. "These lazy people should learn to work," they would say. "He's probably a drug addict." "Why don't these old men work?" Frank wouldn't try to explain. No one would listen anyway. People didn't know that he had once risked his life for his country, saved 12 people's lives, and received the Medal of Honor. The Seattle Police Department knew Frank well. Most officers saw him as a harmless, homeless person and only intervened when complaints came in. Jake Morrison was a University of Washington student, son of a wealthy family. His father owned a tech company. His mother was a socialite. Jake had never faced any hardships and considered disrespecting soldiers and veterans as clever. That day, with his friends Tyler and Mason, he decided to make Frank a fun target. "These types really burden society," Jake said. "Instead of serving in the military, they ran away. Now they're begging for money." Tyler agreed. "Yes, while real heroes were in the army, these guys were being lazy here." Mason pulled out his phone. "Let's share it on TikTok. Call it Trolling the Homeless." Jake approached Frank and asked for money. "Hey, homeless guy, give me $5. Frank was surprised. "I'm asking you for help, sir." I'm asking you too. Don't you know how to work? Tyler and Mason continued filming, laughing. Frank tried to stay calm. I'm looking for work. But work? Jake started laughing. You can't work. You only know how to be a parasite. Kid, you don't know me, Frank said, sternness appearing in his voice for the first time. I know you perfectly well. You're a lazy man who abandoned his country, didn't go to the army. This statement triggered Frank, but he still tried to stay calm. Jake became even more aggressive when he saw Frank didn't fight back. Look at you. You're so old and still begging on the street. Aren't you ashamed? People around started gathering to watch the incident. Some pulled out their phones. You don't have the right to live in this country, Jake said. While real Americans were fighting, you were hiding here. Frank's hands began to tremble. Moments of losing his friends in Vietnam flashed before his eyes. Kid, Frank said, danger becoming apparent in his voice. You better stop. Or what? Jake laughed. What can you do, old man? Jake tried to push Frank down, but Frank hadn't lost his reflexes yet. He grabbed Jake's arm and bent it slightly, a military control technique. Ah! Jake screamed. Let me go! Tyler and Mason were shocked. How could this old man move so fast? Frank released Jake. Don't you ever touch me again, kid, Jake angrily shouted. I'm calling the police. This man attacked me. 5 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. Officer Sarah Chen and Officer Mike Rodriguez. Both were experienced veterans. Jake immediately started complaining. This homeless man attacked me. I want him arrested. Officer Chen looked at Frank. What happened here? Frank stood quietly. Nothing, officer. Just a misunderstanding. Jake shouted. He's lying. I was just telling him he needs to work and he attacked me. Officer Rodriguez turned to Jake. What exactly did you tell this man? I just told him the truth. These types of lazy men are a burden to this country. Officer Chen's expression changed. What do you mean by these types? Veterans. Those who didn't go to war? Lazy types who hide here? Officer Rodriguez and Officer Chen looked at each other. Both were veterans and couldn't tolerate disrespect to the military. What's your name? Officer Chen asked Jake. Jake Morrison. My father owns a tech company. He can get you fired. Officer Rodriguez turned to Frank. Sir, did you serve in the military? Frank hesitated. He generally didn't like talking about his past. Yes, officer. Which unit? 173rd Airborne Brigade, Vietnam. Officer Chen's eyes widened. The 173rd Airborne was one of Vietnam's most famous units. How many years did you serve? 30 years. I retired with the rank of Sergeant Major. Jake still didn't understand. What does this change? He's still a homeless beggar. Officer Rodriguez silenced him. Shut your mouth, kid. Officer Chen looked at Frank more closely. There was a familiar expression on her face. Sir, are you a Medal of Honor recipient? Frank was surprised. How do you know? Because I recognize you. I'm also a veteran. We learned your story in training. Jake and his friends stood in bewilderment. Officer Chen continued. Sergeant Major Frank Weber, 1971, Vietnam. Saved 12 wounded soldiers under enemy fire. Received the Medal of Honor. The crowd gathered around couldn't believe what they heard. Medal of Honor? Someone from the crowd asked. Officer Rodriguez explained. The Medal of Honor is America's highest military honor. It's only given to the most courageous heroes. Jake's face had turned white. The man he had just humiliated was a war hero who possessed his country's highest honor. This isn't possible, he stammered. He's just a homeless. Officer Chen spoke in a stern tone. Thanks to the heroism that man showed, you can stand here right now. He fought for your freedom. Frank was still quiet, not wanting this attention. Tyler and Mason started deleting their videos, but it was too late. The incident had already been recorded by other people around. Jake said in a trembling voice, I didn't know. Frank looked at him. You didn't need to know, but you needed to show respect. How can I make it up? Frank smiled. Next time, don't judge people before knowing them. Officer Chen intervened. Mr. Weber, can we help you? Have you applied to Veterans Affairs? Frank nodded. The bureaucracy is too complex. I got lost in the system. Let us help you. That evening, Frank's story went viral on social media. Some shared Jake's video, But what became really popular was Officer Chen's explanation. Local news announced the story. Medal of Honor recipient veteran living on streets. Seattle residents were shocked. How could such a hero become homeless? The next day, dozens of people came to Frank's corner. They brought food, money, clothing, but Frank only took his basic needs. "Thank you very much, but I just need a roof," he said. A representative from Veterans Affairs came. "Mr. Weber, there have been bureaucratic errors regarding you. Let's fix them immediately." Within a week, Frank's military pension restarted, and suitable housing was found for him. Jake completely changed after that day. He got permission from his father and visited Frank. "Mr. Weber, how can I help you?" Frank saw Jake's sincere remorse. "You can help other veterans." "How?" "There are over 500 homeless veterans in Seattle. They all have stories, too." Jake nodded. "What do I need to do?" Jake started a project called Forgotten Heroes with Tyler and Mason. They established a veteran aid club at the University of Washington. Every week, they visited homeless veterans, helping them apply to Veterans Affairs. Frank became the advisor for this project. He told young people veteran stories, teaching respect and understanding. Frank's story appeared in national media. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC all announced this story. In interviews, Frank said, "I just did my duty, but society forgot me afterward. That's not the problem. The problem is that there are thousands of veterans in the same situation as me." 3 months later, an unexpected call came from the White House. "Sergeant Major Weber, the President wants to see you at the Veterans Day ceremony." Frank hesitated. "I'm just a simple veteran." "No, sir. You're a hero, and your story has inspired millions of people." On Veterans Day, Frank was at the White House for the first time in 48 years. The President introduced Frank, Sergeant Major Frank Weber, Medal of Honor recipient, but more importantly, an American hero who never gave up. Frank approached the microphone. "Being here today is not just my achievement. It's the result of help from young people like Jake Morrison, heroes like Officer Chen, and thousands of people I've never met. Being homeless isn't shameful. What's shameful is ignoring our heroes." Jake was at the ceremony. He cried while listening to Frank's speech. After the ceremony, he approached Frank. "Mr. Weber, I'm grateful to you. You gave me life's most important lesson." "What was that lesson?" Frank asked. "Everyone has a story, and respect is measured not by a person's status, but by their humanity." Frank now lived in a nice apartment in Seattle. Veterans Affairs had solved all his problems, but most importantly, he was no longer alone. Jake and his friends visited him regularly, working together on the Veteran Aid Project. Every Sunday, Frank gave lectures at the university, Veterans and Social Responsibility. The University of Washington added a mandatory course based on Frank's suggestion, Veteran Studies and Social Responsibility. Jake became the assistant for this course. He told students Frank's story, teaching empathy and respect. "Judging a person by their appearance is one of the biggest mistakes," he would say. "I learned this in the worst way." Frank turned his experiences into a book, Medal of Honor, Empty Pockets, A Veteran's Journey from Hero to Homeless and Back. The book was written to draw attention to veteran problems. He donated all proceeds to homeless veterans. Jake wrote the preface. "This book taught me that real heroism isn't just in battlefields, it's lived every day." Frank's story led to policy changes regarding veteran rights in America. Congress passed a law called the Frank Weber Veteran Support Act. This law accelerated the aid process for homeless veterans. Frank proudly wore his Medal of Honor for the first time in 48 years. He no longer hid it. Frank's story was displayed at the Veterans Affairs Museum. Medal of Honor, from Vietnam to Seattle streets, then to hope. Visitors were moved reading this story. After finishing law school, Jake decided to work in the field of veteran rights. "Mr. Weber, thanks to the path you showed me, I found my life's purpose," he said. Frank smiled. "You also showed me the hope of the young generation, Jake." 5 years later, the Forgotten Heroes Project had become a national organization. In 50 cities, thousands of homeless veterans had been helped. Frank, at 72, was still actively working. He was now a legendary figure, both for his military heroism and his struggle in civilian life. Frank Weber's story showed how dangerous prejudice can be. A homeless man living on the street was actually a hero who possessed his country's highest honor. When Jake Morrison humiliated Frank that day, he didn't know who was standing before him. But this encounter changed both Jake's and society's perspective. Most importantly, Frank never gave up. Even in his most difficult moments, he maintained his honor and affected everyone with his patience and humility. The Medal of Honor symbolized not just military achievement, but character. Frank Weber was a true hero in both senses, and young people like Jake learned that a homeless person on the street might be the world's greatest hero. This story teaches us, showing respect to everyone isn't just courtesy, it's what being human requires. Because you never know how the person in front of you might affect your life. Have you ever encountered someone who completely shattered your assumptions about them? Frank's story reminds us that true heroes often walk among us unrecognized, carrying their sacrifices in silence. If you believe stories like this need to be told and our veterans deserve better, please share this video and let us know in the comments. What's one way we can better honor the heroes living quietly in our communities?